Welcome to ScrapbookingStation.com. Today we're going to do a You Make It Father's Day card, and I call this one In a Word. Now this is a kid-friendly card, so you can have them help you put it together. The stamps that I use was Happy Patterns from Hot Off the Press, and I'm going to use these hexagons. This repetitive shape is very popular right now with the different patterned stamps. So since I'm using acrylic stamps, you need your blocks. So I've got the long block and then also this one for plugging in the gaps. And then the color pattern, the colors I've chosen to use is Not Quite Navy, and I'm using a sheet of textured cardstock. And then for the front panel, Sahara Sand. And then for the accent color around the tag and also in the stamping, I'm using chocolate chip and have a 1/4 inch grosgrain ribbon. Of course, you have to have your inks. So I've got my 2 stamp pads and my Stampin' Right markers. And then for the tag, I've chosen to use this key tag punch, but you can leave it rectangular, or you can use any framelit, any kind of tag punch. And then kind of the standard tools, you've got your trimmer, bone folder, the dimensionals, snips, and whatever adhesive you want to use. And I think that's it, and we're ready to get started, so we're going to move down to my work surface.
Okay, I'm going to begin by working on the tag. Again, I use my computer to print that out. The print shop, but My Digital Studio will work. Of course, you could always stamp it, or use sticky letters or die cuts. So I use my key tag punch that out. I'm just going to trace around it. Now when I cut, I'm going to leave about a 1/16 to an eighth of an inch around my tag, so the brown will show up. And then trim that up a little bit. Then I'm going to take that tag, trace it, and do the same thing on my Not Quite Navy. Okay, now we're going to take our 3 pieces, and I'm just going to glue them together. You could use your Snell adhesive to do the same thing, or if you wanted to have a little more, stand up a little bit, you could put dimensionals in between one or both the layers. Okay, so we'll put that tag aside for later. Now start working on the front panel. I'm just going to check my dimensions before I do all that work. Okay, now we're going to take a look at our block. And so what I've done is create that hexagon skeleton. Because I've got a see-through block, you can use the grid lines on my work paper. I'm going to ink that up. And then set that on that panel. Again, I'm always checking those grid lines. So I square up my panel, make sure it's perpendicular, and then take a look at my stamps and make sure they're running up and down. Now we're just going to kind of repeat, fill in some of those holes. So you're checking both the placement and your patterns. And you continue to do that until you've kind of got that base where you want it. Now realize we can fill in some of the gaps with a single hexagon stamp. And then also we're going to have some of them stand up later that we're going to put some of the words for Dad in. Okay, now I'm going to take that last pattern hexagon and try and fill in some of these gaps. So when you're working with acrylic stamps and blocks, you want to rock it a little bit and make sure that hexagon stamp is pretty secure on there. So fill in a couple spaces. And I'm going to switch this camera angle when it comes to assembly so my shoulder doesn't keep getting in the way. Now this next section is something that your kids could have been doing. We're just going to take a single hexagon stamp, the one that we can later write in, and this is for the pieces that are going to stand up from the card with the words for Dad. So we just want to stamp a couple of those. And the only thing to keep in mind here is that when you write the word, that the orientation of it fits on your panel front. And now we've got to snip all those out. Now would be a good time to point out that in this new catalog, Stampin' Up! Has got a coordinating punch. So we'll get that done. So I'm going to take my Stampin' Write marker, and the hexagons that I've stamped in the blue, I'm going to write in my chocolate, and then those others that we've done in chocolate, I'm going to write in blue. So I'm going to try and position that, take a look at how that's going to look. Okay, now that we've got all the pieces made, we're going to start with the assembly process. I've changed the angle so that we can see what's going on a little bit better. Just put a knot in my chocolate chip ribbon. I'm going to snip that off. And then we would just want to check across the width of the card. Have enough on the ends there. I use Scotch tape to secure it. It's not going to move, and the Scotch tape won't be seen. So the only thing here is you want to make sure you're going straight across the card. Again, I try and use my grid paper. So now I'm going to put my tag on. I'm just going to glue it flat. Since we're going to have the hexagon stand up from the card, you don't want too much at the same level. So get that on there, and that also helps secure your ribbon. And then I'm going to take the dimensionals and position those other hexagons. You can put them in the blank spaces or on top of the stamped images. Just want to have a little bit of balance. It always seems like that last piece wants to be difficult, so I'm having a little bit of trouble getting that number one where I want it. Now I'm just going to use a glue dot or a Zot to get that knot on there. And now we're ready to attach the panel to the card front. So once you've done that, you can do the inside. Again, I did that on my computer, but you could put a blank piece of Sahara sand so that you could write your greeting on there. And then that's it, you're finished. So I wanted to thank you for watching, and I'll be posting the product links on scrapbookingstation.com.